All right, now joining the show, one of our friends of the program, J.R. Specs, coming back on. He's got his new song out, "Ball If I Want" with Suts. So go check that out. Available on Spotify, Apple, wherever you stream music. But Happy New Year, J.R. And how you doing?
Thanks, bro. Happy New Year to you. I'm doing great. I've been on this podcast a bunch of times. This is my first time doing it from my apartment in New York City.
Hmm.
Um, just excited to be here. Everything's kind of going as planned for once. We got like the new song coming out. I'm about to put a ton of music out this year. So yeah, feeling great.
So like you said, you made the move to New York. How? I mean, you got COVID, and it seems like what was it, your first month there? So it
Yeah.
hasn't been too eventful. But how has that been making the move to New York from Maine?
Yeah, honestly, so what I will say about it is I had a bunch of friends who grew up in Brooklyn that I like met in college.
Hmm.
So I've been here so much over the last like few years that it wasn't as much of a shock when I finally got here, because I feel like I've kind of been like, I know what the vibe is of like, oh, I've driven around the city a bunch of times and like I've taken the train a few times. So like, I don't know, it's been like a fairly smooth transition, just like getting used to my area. Um, so I live in like Bushwick near like Bed-Stuy. Um,
Gotcha.
I don't know, dude. Like it's been fun. I'm just trying to figure out now, like as soon as this COVID thing's over and I can start doing what I want again,
Yeah.
like how to get the most out of it. Because I really liked living in Maine. Like there's some things about it that this is what I always tell people. Like if I could have done the same amount of music shit, I probably wouldn't have left.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that I'm like really hammering my like window of opportunity. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. So not other than like missing family, friends, what's a big thing you miss in like your first month living in New York that you miss having in Maine or being able to do in Maine? Because like, it's a big transition.
So for me, I think like the biggest difference is when I go outside in Maine, I'm very much like at peace. Like and I'm not even saying here when I go outside, like I have to keep my head on the swivel because it's like dangerous. It's not like
Yeah.
that. It's just like you're always crossing a street where you have to look both ways, and you're
Right.
always like there's a ton of background noise, and there's always somebody yelling at somebody on the street. Just like the overall atmosphere is like you can't get no peace unless you're like by yourself in the crib.
Yeah. Are you nervous you're going to turn into like a typical New Yorker where you're one of the people yelling at people on the street? Or has that thought
No,
not crossed
I,
your mind
I
yet?
I think I'm so like my vibe is just so rooted in like growing up around trees and just
Mhm.
having people spread out. Like I'm definitely like an extrovert and I'll get rowdy once in a while, but like I'm never gonna be the dude that's like pressing people out in public.
Yeah. So you mentioned you've got friends that grew up in New York. How was New York always the city that you figured would be best for music, or was like Boston ever a thought, other cities maybe a little bit further from New York, like Philly, something like that? Or was New York always kind of just like option number one? That's where you figured your music career would be best.
So when I was like super early in college, I think I kind of had the notion that I wanted to move to LA.
Okay.
But basically how it happened was just like I met a lot of people in college at UConn, in Connecticut, and a
Mhm.
lot of them moved to New York, and a lot of them were originally from New York. So it was like my network was already like halfway set up by the end of college. Like my
Okay.
managers live here, two of my best friends live here, all types of other people that I met in school. So it just made more sense for me, I think, and especially to not have because I want to go home to Maine once in a while too,
Yeah.
not have to like fly home, have this long ass flight with probably a connection.
Right.
So like I'm definitely glad it panned out how it did. I feel like New York is probably the next best thing to being in LA, and I
Mhm.
do see myself maybe moving to LA later in life,
Gotcha.
like in late 20s maybe, but
Okay.
we'll see.
Yeah, because you mentioned a couple of friends in New York. Suts is a New York guy,
Yep.
correct? And then he moved to New York from Maine, right?
Yes. So our whole like team of those guys that are originally from Maine, it's me, Be All, and then our managers because we have the same management. Our two
Okay.
managers, and then some producers and engineers that we know. Like all of them are based out of Brooklyn, which is where I live now. So that's kind of that was definitely a big draw for me. Is like I kind of have like a camp set up music wise, and then
Gotcha.
I also got my season 7 boys like Stack, Suts,
Mm.
DG, Loon Boy. So yeah, it was nice to have like to know that I'll have people to cook up with when I get here,
Yeah,
and
you
not
weren't
have to
going
start
into it
completely.
blind and unprepared. You
Right,
had
right,
if you weren't able to network with new people, you had people that you work with in the past already there. Isn't going to be a wasted opportunity.
right. Because I get the vibe that if I had gone to LA, like the sky's the limit because there's just
Mm.
everyone there is doing entertainment. But at the same time, it would have been really like square one. Like I only have one homie out there in LA. So
Yeah, yeah, that would have been tough. So you drop first song of the whole payday period, "Ball If I Want." You mentioned that one's kind of been in the works for a while now. You mentioned you recorded it in Connecticut when you were in school. So how long has this song actually been in the works, and how long have you held on to it?
um, let me think. So the song was written after because the song's about a drunk text. If you heard the lyrics,
Yeah,
it's about getting hammered and saying something stupid. So I think it was my birthday party, and I woke up the next day and I was like, wow, I wish I didn't do that. So I made the song as like almost like a well, that sucks, but I don't care. So the song was like shooting like a shooter boy. I look like I'm Clay.
yeah,
Basically trying to make myself feel better about the fact that I was just letting it fly the night before, and that's why it's baby, it's my party. I can ball if I want because it was my birthday.
hmm,
So all that to say, my birthday's in January, so it was like end of January that we made the song.
gotcha.
It's been a long time because now it's January 2022. It's been almost a full year since the song was made.
Okay, so you made it a year ago. When did you decide that Suts was going to be on the song versus just you, or was that
First
from?
day because we were living together when I was making the
Okay,
song. I think he hopped on like the first day I made it, or maybe the next day.
gotcha. Okay. Now, this is the first. What made you want this to be the first song of the payday period that you plan to do this whole year?
So, like first of all, like there's riskier songs that I have in the tuck. Like there's things
Mhm.
that are like grimier, got like more soul to them. But as far as like my more current sounding songs that have like kind of trap sounds, um, this has just gotten the strongest reaction from people I played it for.
Okay.
That of like anything I've made in a long time. Like when I was driving to March Madness last year, um, there was one point like everybody was asleep in the car, and it was just me and my boy James in the front seat, and I was just playing him through like my entire catalog of like backlog music, and I played him Shooter, that was what the original title was, Shooter. It's Ball If I Want, but I played him Ball If I Want, and he was just like, dude, you need to drop this. And like later in the trip, he'd be like, bro, can you play it again? And like everybody in the car was getting mad hype about it, which they're. So just to see that type of reaction, have people like, whoa, can you actually play that song again? To me, that's
Yeah.
like, as long as I like the song too, that's like a good sign.
God. Yeah, that's awesome. Now you last time you were on, we talked about Grapevine, and you said that would of like the songs you'd recently dropped with Get You Geeked, Red Solo Funk, and Grapevine, you felt that was your most I think you said like radio friendly. You feel like that could be the bigger hit if it was played on the radio. How do you feel Ball If I Want would compare to like Grapevine and then the songs that you dropped along with that this year?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I feel like Grapevine, like I was saying, was radio friendly. And I think a piece of that I was not my favorite was that it is kind of like it's catchy and like not that risky artistically. Grapevine, like it's
Mhm.
kind of playing it safe to like my more pop sensibilities, which I don't
Yeah,
want to do that much. This is catchy, but it's got more stank on it than Grapevine does, in my opinion, because I'm really
yeah.
like screaming the hook kind of. Um, and the verse I think is a lot better than the one on Grapevine. So I think this one is as catchy, but if it blew up, I'd feel a lot better about it, if that makes sense, because I just think
Right.
there's more like personality to it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I mentioned it before how Ball If I Want was the first of the payday period. What made you want to do this? Because it's very like I don't know what it takes to what goes into making music, but dropping two projects each month seems very ambitious, and it seems like it's going to be a challenge once you hit maybe middle of the year. Beginning of the year, you've got songs stacked up, it seems like, and you kind of have a roadmap of what you want to drop. But when it gets down the line, it can get maybe overwhelming. So what made you want to do, and how do you plan on kind of counteracting that shit show effect?
Right. So yeah, trust me, I could talk about this all day, so don't let me go for too long. But so for those that don't know, like the idea of Payday is that I want to drop a song twice a month. So it's like every time you would get a direct deposit from your job, it's the 1st and the 15th. You should check Spotify because you'll have a new song for me as well. So essentially, my thought process was like, oh, all I really did for that whole year that I was like, I dropped those 3 songs last year, but I was recording a shit ton. So if you check my Google Drive, it's like they're not all complete songs. Most of them are like half of an idea, but I have tons of things that like I don't have to start from scratch. Like here's a good amount of like an idea for a song that I could finish. So just seeing how much I had saved up, I was like, oh, if I didn't, this is how I started. And I thought to myself, damn, if I didn't record it all this year, I would still have enough music to just send it to Soto, have him mix it and put it out. I was like, damn, maybe I should do that then. So we get into this thing where now it's like I have 3 songs that are mixed, ready to go completely. I have a couple other things that are like almost done and ready to be mixed. And then I have 50 things that are like the idea is there and I just have to finish it up. So like you were saying, the whole shit show effect is like if I'm like, oh, I got plenty of time to finish. If right now I'm like, I got 4 songs, I'll just stop and then I'll figure out what I'm dropping in April later. I just have to be proactive and not get behind the 8 ball because then the quality of the rollout and the songs will start to suffer. So my whole thing is like, I'm gonna make sure like tonight, tomorrow night, whatever, like I'm working on some shit, even if it's not gonna come out until like April 1st. You know, because as long as because especially because if I finish a bunch of songs right now and I don't mix them anymore, that's another part that's really good. Shout out to Soto, my guy that mixes, because he's doing a really good job. But if I send him the shit for mixing and mastering, he works pretty fast. Like I'll send him a song, he'll mix it in like a week. I can send him another one, you know. And if I start to backlog things that are completely mastered, I'll never get behind the 8 ball, you know, because I'll always have something I can upload.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do you have kind of a date that you want a song done by? Because like, Ball, if I want, you've had this done for a year and you knew this was gonna kind of be, you landed on this being the first one. By like April, like you said, do you want songs to be done this month? Do you want the song that's gonna come out like April 1st to be done this month or even in February?
It's definitely interesting because before it was like you want to have a good amount of time to pitch the song in Spotify editorials after you upload it. So they would say like, oh, let's make sure we get the release in. We get it like submitted 6 weeks before the drop date. But now because we're dropping every 2 weeks, like it won't let us pitch the song until like there's only 2 weeks left because we had already pitched the one before. If that makes sense, like you can only pitch one song at a time.
Yeah.
So basically, like we have to upload it 3 weeks ahead of time now, is what I would say. But I don't want to play with that because that's a slippery slope of getting close to the date. So I would say I'd like things to be mixed and mastered like a month ahead of time at the latest. Gotcha. So like right now it's January 1st. The holidays made it a little hectic, so I'm letting the timeline slip a little. But Soto needs to make like one tiny adjustment for the thing we're dropping on February 1st. And then that's why I'm like, oh fuck, I should definitely figure out what the next song is going to be and get those multi-tracks over to Soto so he can have that set up. So then in 2 weeks, like that one will be done and I'll be doing the same thing, you know? So as long as I'm a month ahead of time, I think I'm straight.
Okay. Now, you're going to have 24 new songs coming out. Is an album in the mix when this pretty much comes to an end? Or is there other music that's going to come into an album? Or is an album part of the Payday drop?
So that's the cool part is like, that's all the way at the end. So I think I know what I'm going to do. But it's in flux a little bit. So I don't really want to say yet, but I think there'll probably be some sort of a project at the end. At the very least, it would be like the last drop would not be one song. It would probably be like a handful.
Gotcha.
But more likely it'll be something a little bit bigger.
Okay. So another thing I think about with you dropping 24 new projects is cover art. Is it all going to be kind of like the pay stub format, or are you creating different cover arts for each song?
So the idea is definitely to stick with like that paper check like border design,
Yeah.
where like has the name and the length of the song and like the amount field. Um, the plan is to do that and change the design behind it. You know,
Okay.
like change the background pattern and the text, but keep the formatting for every song. So that way, it's like when you look at my page, you'll be like, "Oh shit, this is all one thing." You know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so to go with your other music that you've made over the year, you've got Whale Machine that you recently your album came out with your cousin Jimmy. I texted you about that because I was doing an article about Whale Machine, but how did that for you guys really start to get serious where it was like, hey, we should actually do an album together? When was the turning point?
So basically, what happened with that, like that was the coolest thing to me because nothing about it was forced. You know, it was like we never really went into the studio like, oh, we're trying to make this type of record. You know, like we would do that maybe if we were just inspired by something. Like, yo, let's try to do this. But it would always become something else, and we would just let it.
Yeah.
Um, we just got in the studio together like early 2019 because we're cousins and friends and started making shit for fun, and we were having a blast. And then I think the turning point was just being like, yo, we have 6 songs that are really good, like maybe we should just ride this out and keep doing what we're doing until we have a full record. And we did, but that thing could have been put out in like 2019 probably, but we just sat with it for a really long time because like I had other projects going on. We were putting off mixing it and debating should we have someone else mix it, but eventually we just did it ourselves. So it sounds a little bit DIY, but like I think in like a fun kind of cool way. um yeah, man. So yeah, it's really funny to me that project, like the bulk of the songs there were written like 2+ years before they came out, because I've never really done something like that.
Gotcha. Now, how has the reception been? Because it's not like any of the music you've put out beforehand, or at least even the songs you put out in this same year. Because Get You Geeked, Grapevine, they're very catchy. They're more upbeat, and then you get a song like LARPing, which is probably my favorite song off of Whale Machine, and it's a little bit slower paced. It's got a groovier beat to it. What's the reception been with friends, family, fans?
So the reach is definitely not as big. Like there's definitely some people that hear my songs normally that might have missed Whale Machine, like you just got lost in the shuffle.
Mhm.
But out of the people that took the time to listen, the reception was fucking fantastic, actually. Like it got way better. It got a much stronger response than some of the things that I thought would, you know?
Yeah,
Like I'm dropping like Grapevine thinking like, oh, this is gonna appeal to like everyone, and it did, like people liked it, but Whale Machine was just so much more bold and daring artistically, and
mhm,
that really inspires me too to like make sure this year like I'm dropping things people are gonna like, but I don't want to just drop things that I know people are gonna like. Like I want to really roll the dice with some of these songs. Like I got I have Ball If I Want, and then the next one after that, I think people are really gonna dig because it's nothing too like out there. But later in the year, like I got some joints. Like I got one joint called Zaboomafoo. That one's crazy. I got a joint called. I got one called Key Lime that's like really really sad, um, but artistically it's really cool. So I just want to make sure I don't want to put all those things off and then like just drop them as album tracks later. Like I really
yeah.
want to serve you some things up that make you go, oh, what? Like right in your face at some point, you know?
When you the sad one, that's not gonna be like a summer drop because or will that be like later in the year or maybe even like a Valentine's Day around that time type of drop?
So it's interesting because I had it penciled in for probably April.
Mhm.
Um, but now like the schedule's kind of changing because of some things that happen behind the scenes with like people wanting to collab that might be good for like traffic. Um, the thing about the song Key Lime, the sad one, is like it's to be honest, it's the only song I've like ever made where I just started crying while I was recording it. So it's not something I want to re-record, but it's kind of like I did it on kind of like a shitty mic in like not a great room. So the quality sounds very DIY. So I just have to make sure that gets like Soto's gonna have to probably like really knuckle down to do the mix. I'm probably gonna get really picky on that one, but that's definitely something I'll put out probably in the spring, maybe in the fall.
Okay. How much thought goes into when you want to drop them? Because I imagine a lot of like the style of the song will affect like the season it drops with. Like a
Right.
big one I wish you had dropped earlier was Grapevine, so
Yeah.
had it for the summer. Now, how much thought is going into this with the amount of pre-planning you're gonna have to do?
So man, you're so right about Grapevine too. And I wanted to get it out for the summer. I have so many joints where I was like, let's make sure we get this out before the summer. And it always drops in like August, bro, or
Yeah,
September.
it just missed because it was right when went back to college. Like it was you got it right then, which was still good. But I mean, if that came out in June, it would have been that would have just been an awesome summer song to have. I mean, it's gonna be great this
Right.
summer, but you
But
wish
that's
you had
the
it
thing is
right.
I'm always like, they'll enjoy it next summer, I guess. And it's like, fuck, bro. If I had just held on to it and dropped it in June next year, whatever, if it was part of payday, that would have been a
Okay.
bombshell to put at the beginning of the summer, you know?
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
But sorry, what was the question?
How much thought goes into planning, like when you're
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
drop 'em? Like you said, like if you had held on to that one for this year for this June, but like with the seasons, do you get like a feeling, oh, this song will be better in the fall, this one will be better in the winter, or this
Yeah.
is more of a summery vibe? Like how much planning goes into it now because you've got 24 projects you're putting out and you kind of want to make them all hit
Mhm.
more and more and more to build up.
Right. So I think this is kind of just my associations with the seasons. Like, I think spring and fall, um, I think it's better to put out riskier stuff in the spring and fall, in my
Okay.
opinion, just because those are changing seasons, you know? Like, I think if you present like new ideas in those seasons when people are more like in flux and adjusting, it's just probably better received. Um, Summertime is not when I generally fuck around and drop some like weird shit. Like, summertime is definitely a good space to be dropping like just fun things that people will play on the aux. Winter, I would say try to drop anything that's like mental health related, you know, anything. If you're like going through it, probably winter's a good time to put it out because everyone else is too. Um, but yeah, like my main philosophy is just like if I have safer ideas, I want to try to put them in winter and summer when people are like kind of stuck in place, and then drop the riskier shit when the seasons are changing. That's just kind of my
Yeah.
notion right now.
So also this year you were featured on the song Outer Space by Christy Dodson. How did that come about? Did she just reach out to you and think that you would fit good on the song, or was this a prior relationship you guys had where you knew about one another? How did that all come about?
Yeah, so I was just doing a feature run. I was posting on Instagram, like, hit me up. I'm doing features for cheap right now. And her manager had hit me up with the song. And I thought it was cool. So I just hopped on. The verse was fun to do. And yeah, and I got a bunch of other stuff too, like Young Knight from Maine. I did a verse for him on that same run. I did my song with Jay Wisdom, if you've heard that on that run. So a bunch of things where I just bang verses out. I don't think I'm gonna do that this year because I have just enough shit going on now. Like I
Okay.
had some people hit me up for verses this year, and I was just like, I mean, to be honest, if it's not somebody um, that I've already worked with or like I'm friends with, it'll be a little tougher. So I might like run the price up or just like not want to do that for some people this year. Um, but it's also like I'm the type of dude that loves music, so I want to get on songs, if it's really dope.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah. If you get one that if you haven't worked with a person, but you feel like it's got great potential that if you put a verse on it, it could push it over the top. That's going to be a tough one to decline.
right, because I'll say that, be like, oh, I'm doing less features this year. I'm doing less features, and then if the song's heat, like I'll drop everything and just get on it,
Right.
because it
Right.
only takes generally like 2 hours for me to do some shit like that. Like I just hop on the mic, write the verse. I tend not to overthink my features. I just do some shit that kind of vibes with the song.
Mhm.
So I've always loved doing features, dude.
What's the music video potential for this payday run? Because obviously you're not going to be able to do 24 different music videos.
Yeah.
are there certain songs you kind of have in mind that you're like, I have a very good idea for a music video here, I want to do it, or are you just going to be too strapped for time with trying to get the songs out?
Good question. Fuck. So basically, my thinking on this right now is like we can do videos, but number one, I think we should shoot them vertically so we can use them as TikTok and Reels.
Okay.
Um, and number two, I think like it makes more sense maybe for us to shoot like mini videos, like do just a music video for like the hook that's like 30 seconds of footage or something,
Mhm.
to get people intrigued enough to check out the song. Because like you were saying, doing a full ass video, where does that even fit in? You know, like it's
Right.
like I'll do a full video if somebody hits me up and is like, let's do a video, and it's cheap, and I trust them that I don't have to like get really picky with their video. Like if their videos are like fucking crazy and I can just be like, here's the song, go, then I'd let them do it. But I don't want to have to like allocate my like time and resources to like because Wang, for instance, Wang is so good at everything he does with video, but we would
Mhm.
kind of put our heads together when we would make the videos, you know, like he would edit it and I'd be like, well, I think it would fit the song more if we did this. And we kind of like learned how to do music videos together. I don't really have time to do like a learning experience with someone right now, though, you know, like I
Yeah.
don't want to spend energy on that.
So Wang's not is where does he live? Is he going to be out of the picture
He
for
just moved to Wisconsin.
so that's taking him out of the picture for a little bit
Yeah,
at least.
yeah, he's eliminated. But I definitely will still be working with Wang. It's just he's really busy right now because he's a software engineer.
Okay. So do you now that you lose out on him, are there other people in the New York area that you know that you kind of have in mind that will work good for this for music videos in the future? Like when you want to do one that's got the same production as like a Grapevine or a
Yeah,
Get You Geeked, where there was a lot of work put into it, and
yeah,
you want to have somebody that knows what they're doing and somebody you trust like Wang, but you won't really have him.
right. Um, I don't know who my guy would be if I needed to do a music video like tomorrow. You know, I
Okay.
don't. I know of some people who do videos, and I know of some people who have offered, but I just haven't. You know, I haven't looked into people's work that much. I haven't worked with other people on videos. What I do know is like, I don't really want my videos to look overly professional.
Mhm.
If that makes sense. Like I want them to look professional. I don't want them to look like shit. But I get so much more of a kick out of seeing like trippier, like just cool effects, like creative things, and like kind of abstract. Like if you look up Instupendo on YouTube, they have a song that's like popping on TikTok, or he has a song that's popping on TikTok right now. Um, but he has another joint that he put out like a full music video for, and the effects are just like it looks like it was shot on like a camcorder in like the 90s, and like all of the effects are just like super ethereal and kind of like nostalgic, and just doing outside the box shit like that that's maybe just more like impressionist almost.
Yeah.
I would rather see that than like something that's like 8K perfect shot of me in the car, you know, like it's
Well,
just
that 90s style too is a lot more raw.
right, right.
It's it doesn't look like a lot of work went into it, but there was a good amount of work that went into it to make it have that same look and give it that raw feeling that a lot of people are going to kind of relate to more if they see that it doesn't look as professional, like you said.
Right. And that I think coming across as raw is that's like my MO right now because I feel like if I get my song mixed and mastered too perfectly and the music video is too perfect, suddenly you're losing like all of my like intricacies and like idiosyncrasies that I think are what make me good, you know? Because like
Yeah.
I feel like when people meet me, like the people I hit it off with that like me, like are accepting of the fact that I'm like a little like offbeat or like weird, you know?
Mhm.
And the music, like that shit shines through where you'll hear me do I'm trying to think of a good example of something just fucking strange that I did in a song that made it in. Like Get You Geeked, where like the interlude on there where it's just one of my drunk friends talking about how like apricots are dried peaches.
Yep.
That whole thing is like that doesn't make any sense. Like we could have done anything else with that, but I just wanted to do something that was fucking funny to me, you know. And I want to continue to let like not random things, but like real things like that kind of
Mhm.
like slip through the cracks and not make everything look like it was done by a label, you know?
Yeah. What's cool about that is you took that little thing too, and you kind of amplified it in the music video. Like you
Yeah.
made your whole marketing and your whole music video plan around this small thing that, like you said, has nothing to do with the song at all, but it just seems to work. Because
Right.
when you just revolve everything around it, people just assume that it's a part of it, and they're gonna go along with it and think that, oh well, yeah, of course this works. Like of course this is what he means, which
Right.
I think is a pretty neat move.
Yeah. No, that's definitely a good point. Now I'm glad that we handled it like that, where it was just like we spent all our resources on something that was fucking silly and ridiculous, you know?
Mhm.
Because I want to get back to like the whole reason that I and probably everyone else wants to do music for their life thing is because it makes you feel like a kid, you know? And there's
Yeah.
nothing better than that. But a kid doesn't give a shit about like always doing the perfect thing, you know? A kid just has fun. So I definitely think a lot about like, am I trying to be too much of a grown up with this shit? You know, you know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
Like I don't want everything to look flawless.
So before I let you go, you started up the JR Specs Discord.
Yeah.
Um, what how much does Discord help with promotion and kind of building an audience? Because it's definitely newer. It's not putting your stuff out on TikTok and Twitter. It's actually building a community. So
Right.
how much do you think that'll help? And how much have you heard from people that have used it before?
Right.
Um,
So
their effects on
I've seen it in motion quite a bit because you'll see like bigger artists like Kenny Beats. There's this guy Caven MD that I'm in his Discord, and I just see like these communities where people are always submitting their music and like just chatting about other stuff. And I was like, man, I feel like I have a solid, small like circle of really dedicated like supporters. Um, so I just wanted to kind of put them in one place and hopefully like have them interact more. And it's been cool so far. I just need to figure out like, you know, not everybody's gonna want to hop in there and fucking hear what I'm eating for breakfast every day. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I want to figure out like what I can do to make it an enjoyable thing to be a part of, and what I can do to
Yeah.
make it more engaging. You know, so I think once we figure it out, it could be a really useful tool for just
Mhm.
like having more of a family and less of like, I know 20 people here, 20 people there. You know?
Yeah. I a counterpoint to that though, as a fan, with how your music style's a little bit weirder. It's you do weirder things. I think hearing about like just random stuff in your day-to-day life as a fan is entertaining because you're also not if you're in that community, you're not it's not like you're a Kendrick Lamar fan where you don't know what's going on in his day-to-day life. You're getting to interact with you directly.
Right.
It's stuff like that I think is pretty cool where you're just throw something out where you're just talking about your normal life.
I think I probably need to just keep pushing it because like there's a few people that would probably consider themselves super fans. Um, and I don't know if all of them are in there yet. And I
Mhm.
think it's crucial to like have the people that really would be like, I'm a JR Specs fan, like that would like tell you that straight up. Those
Yeah.
people need to be in the chat, and like those people got to feel comfortable enough to speak up, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah,
But JR, I appreciate you coming on.
absolutely,
Like I
bro.
said, happy new year and then plug away on all the songs, social media, everything you want to get out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's JR Specs. I just kicked off my payday bi-monthly release series. I'm dropping like 24 shits this year, and it's 2022 now, so we're in the thick of it. Make sure you stream Ball If I Want. Just came out. Shout out to Andrew. I'm sorry I was late for the podcast again,
All good. It's New
but
Year's Day. It's all good.
it is. It is. Had to call an audible.
But yeah, thank you for listening to this episode of the My Parents Office podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes we're going to be dropping this week.